Well, in a more than 2.5-decade career at Simon Property Group and predecessor of Melvin Simon and Associates, Steve Sterrett was involved in some big real estate deals for what became the world's largest mall operator. Sterrett retired as Simon's CFO in 2015 and soon found out he had at least one more real estate deal to put together. I sat down with the Lawrence native and IU grad at Old Oakland Golf Club, where he's overseeing a makeover that is near and dear to his heart. Steve, 30-year career at Simon, retired in 2014 as chief financial officer, great business career. You know, a lot of people retire to golf, but not a lot of people retire and buy a golf course. Was this part of that retirement plan you had envisioned?
It was not part of the retirement plan at all, Gary. I always told people when I was thinking about retirement that work, when you boil it down to its kind of most simple ingredients, is forced social interaction and forced mental stimulation. And you can't go from doing 60 hours of a week, to zero. So I had other things that I was going to do. I'm on board of a couple of public companies, doing some philanthropy on some not-for-profit stuff. But the opportunity to buy the club presented itself about a year after I retired. As you know, I live on the golf course. I've been a member for 30 years. Lived in Lawrence Township since I was 6 months old. And I saw a lot of potential. The course has good bones. I thought about it in the way I would have thought about an acquisition in the mall business. There's no other private club within 7 miles of here. If you look at demographics, 3-mile trade area, there's 45,000 people. About 9% of golfers or Americans self-identify as golfers. So there's 4,000 golfers living within 3 miles of here. This is a perfect opportunity to provide a spot, to service, in essence, the northeast side of Indianapolis or the south side of the lake. So it's turned into a bit of a labor of love, but it's been fun.
Business decision, you talk about the business model, if you will, but passion, I think, is a part of it too on a couple of levels. One, you're a passionate golfer. Talk about your love of the game of golf, because you golf all over the world.
I am. I was a 3-sport athlete back in the day in Lawrence Central when short, slow guys could still play high-level varsity sports. But it became pretty apparent in my early 20s that I was not going to play industrial league basketball forever or play slow-pitch softball. So I started looking for something to do competitively. And I always had good hand-eye coordination. I had actually taken a PE class when I was at IU back in the day on golf. And so I remember buying the Jack Nicklaus Golf My Way tape and started kind of futzing around with learning how to play golf and got hooked pretty quick. So really beginning maybe by the time I was about 30, I started playing tournament golf. I'm actually the president of the Indiana Golf Association this year, so I still play tournament golf. And it's taken me all over the world, played some great courses, met some wonderful people. So that part's been very fun.
And you're very passionate too about Lawrence Township. You grew up here. You mentioned your athletic career at Lawrence Central High School. You met your wife there. Talk about that passion and what Lawrence Township, what this area of Indianapolis means to you.
Well, it's funny. When I graduated from IU, I was an accountant. Spent the first 10 years of my career in public accounting. I remember being 26 years old and writing some goals down on a piece of paper, and one of them, interestingly enough, was to be the CFO of a Fortune 500 company. Always thought that I would have to leave Indianapolis to do that, and happily with the growth that Simon had after the IPO, I was able to make a full career out of Simon, accomplish some goals, and never have to leave town, which was very cool. But I coached youth basketball in Lawrence. I was on the board of the school township foundation for a long time. Our kids went through Lawrence Township schools together. So it's home. And the fact that I can do this as now a small business owner, but in a small part give back to the community and really build something, create something to be proud of, and do it in my hometown, it's pretty special. Not a lot of people get to do that.
Well, I think it's important to note you've not only purchased the course, but you're investing in a large way into the course in some substantial improvements. Talk about the improvements, what you're trying to create. You've already created, but will create here at Old Oakland.
Yeah, I'm over budget, if that counts at all. Well, I mentioned earlier, when I bought the course, I did so because I thought it had really good bones. It was a good golf course, but it needed to be modernized. And so we spent the first 3 years redoing the golf course, all new bunkers, all new cart paths, all new sprinkler system, put in some new tees to make it either harder or easier depending upon, you know, what level of golfer you were, put in a new short game practice area. And then the last element, which we're in the midst of doing right now, is we're about doubling the size of the clubhouse. New fitness area, all new life fitness equipment, Peloton bike, a 2-bay indoor hitting area with TrackMan simulators, expanding the restaurant area, creating a private dining room area. So when it's all said and done, we'll have created something that looks very different than it was when I bought it.
The game of golf, the business of golf, has gone through some challenging years in recent years, but you're obviously bullish on the golf course business.
You know, it's interesting, and I think part of what we've gone through as a nation here the last couple of months has made people appreciate things that all of a sudden they couldn't do for a while, and whether that's go to a restaurant or go out and play golf. The number of golfers in the United States has stayed relatively steady, you know, over the last 10 or 20 years. The number of courses has come down, and so, you know, we're busy. And so it's not for lack of demand. And then I think the other thing is an entity like Topgolf has introduced tons of people to the game, and they find out, hey, it's really fun. And over time, as an industry, we'll convert some of those social golfers to people who want to belong to a club or play, you know, real golf on a regular basis.
Former Simon CFO Steve Sterrett, and in full disclosure, I am a member at the club. My wife and I live there, and I can attest firsthand that Steve and his wife Betty are doing a really great job transforming Old Oakland into something very special. Now here's a look at what's making news now around Indiana. The developers of the $440 million Electric Works mixed-use innovation district in downtown Fort Wayne have received a key approval. RTM Ventures says the National Park Service has okayed the redevelopment for the project's west campus at the former GE site. RTM Ventures says the project can now utilize federal historic preservation tax incentives to finance the $250 million first phase. Fishers-based Rebar Development is planning a more than $17 million mixed-use project in downtown Lafayette. The company says construction on the Ellsworth is expected to begin this fall. The city says the project will feature nearly 100 loft apartments and 2,000 square feet of commercial space. And Manchester University says it is offering 4 years of tuition-free education exclusively to incoming undergraduates. The university says students from families that make $65,000 or less per year will be eligible for the optional assistance. The university also says students must live in on-campus housing each year and pay fees, including room and board, in order to qualify. And I'll be right back after this. Stay with us.